Our next speaker is Gabriella Rowe. Her title is Chief Executive Officer, Station Houston, but a more descriptive title in my mind is Force of Nature. Gabby has been a difference maker in fields as diverse as investment banking, early childhood education, school administration development, community economic development. I understand you're teaching entrepreneurship at St. Thomas here in Houston. And of course, startup incubation. Station Houston's membership now includes 207 startup clients and dozens of high-impact strategic partnerships with the corporate and individual innovators that drive Houston's economy. I first met Gabby when I gave a pumps and pipes presentation at a STEAM summit during her time as head of school at the Village School here in Houston. At that time, I must have spoken to her for all of 30 seconds. But that brief conversation led several days later to a visit to the principal's office, which my whole life I'd been trying to avoid. I thought it was just a get-to-know-you meeting, but I emerged having agreed to create and teach a Pumps and Pipes Summer Academy, which has now happened over the summers of 2018 and 2019. Gabriella has no patience for a vision that remains just a vision. So here to talk about Houston learning innovation is Gabriella Rowe. Okay.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Bill, for that introduction. I'll try my best to live up to it. So I will admit I am not a very patient person, particularly when it comes to education, and I love that description of the problems of the future as wicked problems, because I believe they are in every way, and my focus is on how do we make sure that those 6, 7, and 8-year-olds are ready not only to conquer those problems, but the ones, quite frankly, that we haven't even messed up yet to create. And so my view is that we need to blow things up. We need to change the way in which we think about learning. We've already begun to think about the way we change work, and in that way, we will be able to change the world. And I'm happy to say that Houston has been doing tremendous work on this, I'll talk a little bit more about. So I am the CEO of Station Houston, which is a tech incubator here in Houston, but I'm also an advisor for the Innovation District, Innovation Corridor, which you are sitting in part of right now, and I think you're gonna hear more about this afternoon from Eric Halverson. But Houston is leading the way in its vision of what collaborative work, learning, invention, creativity should be in the future to begin to solve those wicked problems. But 30 years from now, who are going to be the scientists and the collaborators who will occupy that space? And will they have the skills necessary and the motivation necessary to make a difference? So I'm going to start my next slide with someone very wise once said to me, Dr. Bill Klein, it must all start first and foremost with being useful. As we think about what that means for our students, it's about motivation, it's about heart, it's also about being future focused. Making change happen as part of the learning process, as opposed to a more traditional view, such as what will you be when you grow up? The fact of the matter is, learning has not changed since the 1600s. We sit in a room, we have desks, we have someone standing at the front of the room. I hear many, many educators say to me every day, oh, but we have so many things that are different in what we do today. We're sitting at desks in a room with someone at the front of the room. There just happens to be a lot more technology involved. There's more complex terminology involved. And even in our most advanced classrooms where we are handling and executing the kind of curriculum you just heard about, we are still doing it within the walls of our classroom and with the idea of being led through that exercise. We are expecting our youth of today to drive change. As I often say to many of the parents that I work with and colleagues I work with, when that happens, do you know where most of us will be? Gone. Therefore, if the way in which we prepare them for that world of change means us guiding them, what are they going to do when they get there? We've seen several presentations about what is changing in the world of work. You saw the celebration for the landing on Mars, the collaboration, the iteration, the failure, the discipline, the persistence necessary to make that event happen with the individuals in that room and thousands others who were involved is exactly the kind of work that our children are going to have to do. And yet the people in that room did that despite their education. How should we change learning then for our students? In the world of education, we throw around a lot of words. Entrepreneurship, class I'm teaching. Collaboration, discipline, self-reflection, innovation. These are all things that we tell our students they now have to learn in the same way we used to tell them that they had to learn history and math and chemistry. We've just added a bunch of skills to the list. So you should sit longer at that desk, study harder, and take more tests. Right? I sure hope not. But the fact of the matter is, it is not at all about what they should learn. It's about who they should be. And this is when we can go back to that traditional metaphor of what do you want to be when you grow up? But instead of filling in a profession, we want to fill in a way of being. If we are truly going to attain the outcomes we look for in those sustainability goals, if we are truly going to solve those wicked problems, all of our students have to go in with the same dream, the same aspiration. And when I thought about the theme for this conference, and I thought about what greatness means to me when I'm working with startup entrepreneurs or I'm working with 5-year-olds, I want them to come onto this world, onto this stage of change, and become the drivers and the agents that will make it happen. Some of that is the agency that we want to develop that you just heard about. But some of it is completely shifting and changing the way in which we think about the learning environment. And I mean something really radical when I say that. I mean, take the walls of the schoolhouse away. It doesn't mean that you're not going to sit and learn in a collaborative group. It doesn't mean you won't have gathering spaces. It means that education and school should and must take on a different meaning. When I think about this and explain it both to parents, educators, and even to the entrepreneurs who are building their companies that I work with, I think about it in 3 steps. First, it's immersive learning. And for those of you who have young children, you will recognize this. I need to learn everything there is to learn about dinosaurs. I need to learn everything there is to learn about space. I'm going to go deep. I'm going to surround myself with it, and I'm going to feel it and become one with that really, really cool topic. It could be Minecraft. For those of you who have, teenage boys, it could be Fortnite, or girls. But it means that function, which is actually very physiologically of wanting to immerse ourselves in a topic, to begin to understand and feel it. Following that then, with the similar kind of curriculum you just saw, project-based, problem-based, depending on the age of the students that you're working with and the access to real-world problems, but always gravitating toward that real-world problem, like the mosquito curriculum you just saw. The third piece, though, for me, is the most important. place-based learning. That means leaving the safety and security of organized education behind. That means going out into the real world, not as an apprentice who stands by and watches, but as an engaged partner and collaborator to the scientists, to the medical professionals, to the lobbyists who are already doing the work. Collaborating with them, thinking with them, problem solving with them. That requires getting over a whole bunch of hurdles. We have to feel okay that we trust our children to go out into the world and stay focused and work, not go hang out and do whatever, as opposed to building on the problem. It means we have to trust that they have something to say for themselves. I have often been encountered adults who say, yeah, what are they really going to know? What are they really going to be able to add to my lofty education that I am bringing to solving this problem? You'd be surprised. And then we also, and perhaps most difficult, have to surmount the problem of valuing the experience. And what I mean by that, quite frankly, is putting a grade on it. How do you take a place-based experience in a science lab in an existing, functioning, what we might call corporate entity, and put a grade on it? How do we put that on a transcript? Well, if we can't get past that, we're not going to solve those wicked problems. And so I ask the people in those environments, how do you grade one another? And in that way, we focus on solving the problem, finding the change, grading the change, and continuing a learning cycle with our students that enables them to feel empowered, the scientists that they are working with to feel that they add value, and for them to be motivated to stay on the path necessary to solve those wicked problems of the future. I've given this talk many times, and it's always at this point where I can almost see the bubbles floating over the heads in the audience where people say, well, that's a great idea, but it's not really possible. How do you actually do that? Well, thanks to this organization and this amazing city that we live in, we've already done it. And the case study that Dr. Klein referred to a few minutes ago started when I first attended a talk he gave on what pumps and pipes is and how it was formed. And I had a light bulb go off, which is, let's turn that into an everyday living and breathing learning experience for our children. And then he and several other what I deem as marginally crazy educational individuals, developed a curriculum that followed that continuum for our students. 4 weeks of STEAM. Our last cohort was 15 students from both public and private schools, 12 site visits included, and then on top of that, probably another dozen lectures from outside individuals coming into the students, ending up with 5 real-world solutions with invented and manufactured prototypes at the end of that 4 weeks. These were students ranging in age from 14 to 17. They were working on problems as lofty as a stable hydrogen energy source for an automobile, to blades on wind turbines that could adjust to migrating birds, to a flood sensor for the underpasses in Houston that allowed gates to be triggered so that people would not drive into underpasses and drown. They ended up with prototypes that were so good that many of them have gone on now to work with scientists here in Houston to develop versions of their ideas that can actually become companies, that can become viable MVPs. And during this program in the last week, one of the students said to me, I really wish I could do this every day. And my first thought, believe it or not, was there's no way you'd never get any work done. Because that's what we're programmed to think. But then I thought, what did she work on? She did science in the classrooms because they were working with some very, very, very advanced principles in science. She did hands-on learning, including a little bit of spraying of hydrochloric acid that taught her that antibacterial Lululemon pants disappear immediately when hit with hydrochloric acid. That's her next project, by the way. And she also learned how to collaborate with students who had skills that she didn't have that complemented her idea. She also learned how to collaborate with scientists who were working with them side by side to help them figure out what experiments to do to lead to their MVP. And she walked away at the end with absolute, solid knowledge that she was going to change the world. I firmly believe that one of the greatest missions that we have as the adults on the planet today is to stop burdening our youth with the structures of our past. We believe that success in education is measured by what got us here. The reality is, we wouldn't have those wicked problems today in the way we have if we hadn't messed up so badly. So really, is that the education we want our students to have if they're going to make a change? Exactly what caused us to put up walls and borders, focus on individual accomplishments, grade point averages, and the austerity and ranking of the school to which we attended or got our diploma? Are any of those things that helped us be successful today going to help our children in the future? And I often say to parents who think this all sounds wonderful and then want to know how to get their child into Harvard, would you hire your child? And if you wouldn't, which you probably wouldn't, what do you need to change that now? So invest in the future of education by investing in supporting the change today, radically different than where we were, but suitable for where our children will be. Change the learning, change the work, and change the world. Thank you very much.